I chose screws because they're easily replaceable. You know, if you're lodging these things in the skulls of zombies, you're going to be breaking off a few here and there. Hey guys, welcome back. I am Jason Salyer, and here's some quick tips to help you be more prepared. Here I am trying to do a video on being more prepared, and I'm ridiculous. When I'm melting the end of my paracord, it sometimes ends up with this big ball. It's a big gloopy ball on the end. But what you can do is when you're melting it, when you're heating it up, before it solidifies and gets cool again, just kind of drag it across the top of a piece of wood or something like this. And what that does is it makes it nice and clean and small, and then it usually leaves like kind of just some little burrs or whatever you want to call it, little fringiness. You just hit that real quick with the lighter again, and then it's good to go. And that won't cause you any problems when you're kind of inserting it into that small hole in the handle of the axe or shovel or whatever it is. We've hung up some of our most used hand tools, like a splitting maul, splitting axe, sledgehammer, mattock, and the most used shovels and post hole diggers and that kind of stuff. Got room for a couple more items that I'm going to be hanging up there. But what that does is it keeps my primary tools kind of out of the weather. They're not sitting on the ground somewhere where they're going to rust. They're going to last a lot longer, and I know exactly where they are. I can go get my hands on them when I need them. So simplifies my life, makes it a little bit more organized. Hang on to every single nut and bolt and screw and nail that you come across. I have got everything from, roofing screws to what are these, finished screws, construction type screws, 3.5, a quarter, 1 1/4 inch, some 5/8 ones. I've got a whole big bucket of the 3 inchers here. Nails for nail guns, a whole 5-gallon bucket full of it. I think these are, some finished nails that I came across. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing with a 5-gallon bucket full of tiny finished nails, but I'm sure one day maybe I'll have a use for it. But anyway, I just save all of the stuff, I try to keep it fairly organized and where I can kind of get hands on it, because you wouldn't believe how many times it's come in handy just to have this stuff easily accessible at home. I live half an hour from the closest place where I could go pick up a bolt or screw if I needed it. And it's been so often that I just come out here and I find exactly what I'm looking for. And it's just a really big time saver. I've got a bucket here with this is where I put all the miscellaneous stuff, just if it doesn't really have a specific home, it gets tossed into that bucket and, perhaps sorted out later, or I don't know, if we need to shut down the roads, we'll throw that on there. It gets flat tires going. And that goes for plumbing parts too. I've got buckets full of plumbing fittings and, all that kind of stuff. Just so I can have it on hand. I don't necessarily go out and buy it extra, just to have, kind of like you would food storage. But if I come across it, if I'm using it for a job and there's stuff left over, I never toss that stuff, never get rid of it. I keep it all. And it's really handy. And along those same lines, I keep spray paints, and that doesn't go there. I've got spray foam insulation. I've got adhesives, WD-40s, all that kind of stuff, parts cleaners. Just a steady supply of those kind of things can come in really, really handy when you need them and save you the trip if you do live a little bit further away from society like I do. All right, when the zombies come, we want to be prepared with some sort of good melee weapon. I chose some high-vis gaff tape here, so it's got good grip, and I can see it. You know, if I was to drop it in the midst of all the zombie horde, I'd be able to easily pick it up and not lose sight of it. You want to go with a really good, solid piece of wood. This is hickory off of an old axe handle. It's probably not going to break on you, but it's really got a nice, good feel to it. It's not as big and bulky and as heavy as a bat would be. And it's going to be a little bit quicker in the hand. I chose screws because they're easily replaceable. You know, if you're lodging these things in the skulls of zombies, you're going to be breaking off a few here and there. And nails are just going to be a little bit trickier to get replacements for. So that's what we went with, 3-inch deck screws. And then along the same lines of having the tools and hardware and all the stuff to fix the things, learn how to fix the things. Instead of immediately calling the repair guy to come out and do whatever it is, actually take the time to learn about the task, learn about the piece of equipment or the refrigerator or whatever it is. So when the time comes and you can't just make a phone call for help to come, you are a little bit more capable of fixing that problem. This is a Leatherman Wave Plus. And now I like the idea of just carrying a knife in my pocket. I like the idea of just having that blade, you know. For some reason, that's just a little bit more sexy. However, this Leatherman multi-tool, this Leatherman Wave Plus, is so handy. Obviously, it's got just a regular blade on there, but having those pliers, having the flathead Phillips head screwdriver, a saw, and all of those other tools on there comes in so handy, and I use it all the time. And it's just kind of something that has become part of my EDC and is pretty much indispensable. Put your fire extinguishers in a really accessible, easy to get to location, especially if you're gonna be storing flammable goods like that in a place like this that's built out of very dry, seasoned pine. So make sure you've got fire extinguishers. I'm actually gonna get some bigger ones. These small ones just are not. I've done some testing on these. Hopefully that video will come out soon, but done some testing on these, and they're just, anything other than a tiny fire, a small fire extinguisher like this is just not going to get it done. You need the big full-size deals. Otherwise the fire is just going to keep on raging. Speaking of testing things, you need to be testing the gear yourself. You don't just need to take somebody's word for it like mine and say, oh yeah, this thing is going to work flawlessly. It may not in your situation. You need to know that and have confidence in your gear and equipment. And not only that, you need to be out testing yourself and learning exactly what your capabilities are. Just because you used to be able to do something doesn't mean you could do it anymore. So get out on a regular basis and test yourself and see where your limitations are and things that you might need to work on. Learn how you function at altitude. Is that an issue? Learn how you deal with being deprived of caffeine for a day or without food for multiple days. Can you function? Is that something that's just going to completely shut you down if you haven't eaten in a couple days? Try that stuff out. See how you handle lots of various situations now when, you know, things are good and when it's not a real survival situation. Start learning your local plants. A good strategy is just to learn one at a time. Learn what it looks like, how to easily identify it, learn all of its properties, all of its uses, and really dive into a single plant and then move on to the next. And that's going to make it a lot simpler and less overwhelming than be like, there's a million plants around me, I'll never learn all of these. And along those same lines is learn how to identify your local trees in the wintertime. Like when these trees lose their leaves like they have now, how do I know that that is a poplar tree? Well, I know because I can identify the bark of the tree. But without, you know, a little bit of training or a little bit of time out in the woods learning these things, you won't know that. So being able to identify plants in the wintertime is a big deal as well. So learn your plants. I've taken to wearing a buff in the wintertime. This one happens to be a wazoo buff. There'll be a link to the Wazoo site in the description if you want to take a look at that. But this is something I've taken to wearing in the wintertime. Just helps insulate you a little bit, keep your neck warm, keeps the blood that's close to the surface really warm. And you can also pull it up over your face to keep your nose and lips and things from getting too cold. And it's really, really handy. I've actually used this quite a bit underneath my helmet on a motorcycle. So you could use it as a bandage if you needed to. Although I haven't tried it, this would probably work really well as a tourniquet as well if you used a windlass. I think it would probably work pretty well. That might be another video. We'll see how that goes. But if I'm not wearing this thing, I keep it folded up and I put it in my pocket. It'll go in your back pocket, front pocket, doesn't matter. It's really, really small. And it's just a really handy thing. If you need to get something out of the fire that's hot, you can use it kind of as an oven mitt sort of deal. Put it up on your head like a hat. It's just a handy piece of cloth, handy piece of clothing. Speaking of clothing, I also keep a thin pair of gloves like this. These are the Gorilla gloves. I keep these in my pocket because I always wear cargo pants. That's another tip for you. Just start wearing cargo pants, man. These are True Spec Expedition pants. They were actually designed by Mr. Alan Kay. And they're extremely handy, really, really functional pants. Lots of room, lots of pockets, and they stretch and move with you. But anyway, I keep my gloves in one of my cargo pockets. And they're just super handy. I get like cracked, what do you call them, cuticles or whatever in the wintertime. And it's really annoying and kind of painful, and I'm kind of a sissy, and I try to avoid that if possible. And wearing these gloves helps prevent that a lot. Not to mention that you just, saves your hands a little bit of wear and tear by putting these thin gloves on. And plus, they are thin enough where you still have some dexterity and you can feel what you're doing. So I like these Gorilla gloves a lot. All right, guys, if you like these quick preparedness videos, make sure you hit that thumbs up. I really appreciate that, and there'll be more to come if so. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and we'll see you on the next one.